wheel. Cameras rolling, it's all for real. Who's the guest today? Who's the guest today? Record spinning, always winning. Right, 'cause Nemo questions pinning. Andrew called the shot, don't miss the frame. Hobby hooligan, what's your name?
What's up, all you hobby hooligans? Welcome to another episode of Ashtabula Hobby Talk. I'm your host, Rikus, from Captain's Comics, North Kingsville, Ohio. I'm the owner and comic book enthusiast. And we have a guest on the show, but this is Nemo.
Hey, everybody. I'm Nemo, president of Amigos Radio Club, Ashtabula, and welcome, hobby hooligans, to Ashtabula Hobby Talk. And we have special guest on tonight, Johnny Mullet. Thank you, sir, for coming in. He runs Northshore CB Radio Club, and he's in tonight to talk to us about CB Radio.
Hey guys, yep, I am the special guest tonight here on the Ashtabula Hobby Talk, and I thank you guys for inviting me. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about a hobby that's been around for many years, CB Radio.
You said that you've been involved in the CB for your whole life, just about.
Yes, exactly. It all started out when we were just kids, 7, 8, 9 years old. My dad was a TV repairman back in the time. He worked on radios and stuff. And 1977, when the CB boom exploded and 40 channels were expanded from 23 channel radios, a lot of old radios got liquidated. And my dad picked up a ton of these little crystal walkie-talkies with the telescoping antenna that you used to see back in the day. And they had just one channel on them, channel 14, and they were crystal powered. So back in those days, you could actually take the radio apart and change the crystal and get a different channel. There's a receive and a transmit crystal. So all the kids in the neighborhood had them, and they were, they didn't run high wattage on those handhelds back then. They were low power radios, but the entire neighborhood could talk to each other, and the parents could get on the base or the mobile and hear us talking and know where we're at and know what we're up to. So it all started for me when I was a little kid, and then as I got to be a teenager and got my first car, I put a CB in my car. And I've always had a radio in my car. I've talked to all kinds of people. I've met so many people. And back in those days, the 70s, the 80s, and into the 90s, CB was very, very popular. Very popular pastime because it's there's no license required. You can buy a CB pretty much anywhere, a truck stop or whatever, and put a magnet mount antenna on your car and you're talking. So, and even if you get a low quality antenna and radio, you can get up to 10, 14 miles range, if depending on conditions and everything. But if you live in a neighborhood or a town that's maybe 10, 15 miles, and you guys live across town from each other, you'd have no problem talking. So it all started like that when I was a kid. And as you learn about radio and you can hear this certain person, but not so well, you learn maybe to change your antenna or change this or change that. And then, as you grow, you learn and you progress. And that's how it's been all my life. And CB radio died in the 2000s. Cell phones came out mainstream, and CB radio pretty much died out. You'd hear the truckers on channel 19 or 29 and maybe a few locals. But I moved to Ashtabula County in 1996. And I did have a mobile CB at the time. And back then, channel 20 was the local Ashtabula CB channel. And Conneaut here, I think it was channel 10. I've talked to a few people there, but as time went by, they sort of faded out. But what was strange is when the whole COVID thing happened, the CB radio hobby exploded. People were stuck at home, couldn't do anything. They're buying CB radios and putting their magnet mount antennas on their refrigerators and stuff just to do something and talk to somebody. So that's what is really helped bring CB radio back. And a lot of people that have it, some people didn't like it. They didn't stick with it. But some of us, we've been here for a long, long time. And a lot of us are new. And us older people need to, teach them how to, enjoy the hobby. I mean, we've actually had a person come in We were talking on the radio, a couple friends of mine, and we kept hearing something come in like somebody was transmitting, but it was all scratchy and weird, and we couldn't make out any voices. So I says, hey, if you can hear me, click once for yes and click 2 for no. So can you hear me? And he clicked once. So I literally gave him my phone number over the airwaves and told him to call me. And that very next day, I went up to his house, and he had this old trucker's beat up CB sitting on his coffee table. It didn't have a light on it. The meter was not even in the hole. So there was just a hole on the side of the radio. And I was like, can I see your antenna? And he's like, yeah. And we opened the door of his trailer, and he had a pair of vice grips with holding an old lip mount radio. And his SWR must have been way off the charts because the radio wouldn't work well with the antenna. That's why he couldn't transmit. So I went home, and I had a homemade antenna that I started out with at home, and I upgraded, so I saved it, and I brought it to him. I gave it to him. We hooked him up, and he's been on the air ever since. So, stories like that just, make it an enjoyable hobby.
Yeah, I can relate as far as that goes. Like back when I was younger, I kept a CB radio in my car, and it was probably right after the licensing phase happened. When was that? Was that 72-ish?
Yeah, somewhere around there. The licensing phased out after 77 because of the explosion of the 40 channels, and the FCC just could not keep up. There were so many people on the air.
Yeah, when I started, it was 19, and that was there wasn't a license back then, and that was sort of one of the things that drew me to it. That and that there was still enough of the protocol there, the civility there in the CB realm that people were actually, if you had a CB in your car, you were the one who helped somebody. You saw somebody broken down on the side of the road, a trucker or anybody sitting there, you pulled over because you were the one who could get them the help and get that down there. And that was one of the things that really drew me to it. But you mentioned the old telescoping antennas. I had a realistic that had that too, and yeah, I didn't get very far with those, but they were fun to play with when we were kids.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun, and they actually make modern walkie-talkies for CB. President Electronics came out with the Randy 2 and the Randy, and they got a cheaper version. I can't remember, the Jerry, I think it's called. It's a 40-channel AM FM. FCC recently legalized FM mode for CB use.
Yeah,
a lot of people are not using the FM mode. It's a little bit different. Like, for instance, your car stereo. You put it on AM, you can hear a little staticky, and but the stations from far away do come in. And on FM, it's boom, crystal clear, and if the station's fading out, you're probably going to switch the channel. FM on CB radio is the same way. If you can hear that person's voice, if that voice makes it across your squelch, it's crystal clear, like he's sitting next to you or next to you. And so that's cool, but the range is not as good as AM or single sideband. So there are, several modes of the CB radio. Most people run the regular AM mode CB radio, which is what everyone had for decades and decades. The FCC released FM mode recently, but there's not a lot of people that have them. But a lot of radios do have a single sideband, and that also allows you to talk even further than your normal AM mode.
Yeah, I remember I did the subject on that on my radio net. We talked about CB radios going to FM. I just thought it was a way for them to sell more radios and get it updated. I mean, I get it. The FM, we use FM frequencies in ham radio for 2-meter UHF communication. So, but to me, it just seemed like a way for them to sell more radios. Why would you want to give up skip? I didn't understand that.
Yeah, exactly. Skip is a fun part of CB radio, and also certain ham bands. The solar cycle, every 11 years, we have solar maximum, solar minimum. and that actually affects radio waves in a big way. And for instance, on CB radio, you might have a CB radio you bought and you hooked it up and you made sure everything's working correctly, and you turn it on and you're hearing these voices coming from down south or out west or even different countries. And you're like, wow, that's kind of strange. But no, it's called skip in the CB world. In the ham world, they call it propagation. And basically, what happens is when the solar cycle is near max, where it is right now, your signal can bounce off the ionosphere, and it can shoot hundreds, if not thousands of miles away. As a matter of fact, I was at home on my base station CB with our Northshore CB Radio Club talking to 6 or 7 guys, and this faint voice came in, and he had an accent, and I heard him say mate, and then I heard him say Melbourne, Australia. I keyed up the microphone that's 10,000 miles away, and he heard me and came back to me. And I said, that's awesome before we lose you, because what happens with propagation, it's very time limited. I mean, the skip could last hours or it could last just seconds. And I thank you for the contact. I unkeyed, before I unkeyed, I said, anybody else want to try? And luckily, all 6 of us that were talking on various different radios and setups were able to make that contact to Australia, which was absolutely amazing. So skip is fun, but it's not so fun when you want to talk local. For instance, we have our local club. We got, 50 plus members and stuff. Maybe 15 to 20 of us are active at any given time, but in the middle of the day when these signals are coming in from all over the world, you'll hear somebody in the West Coast before you can hear your buddy 12 miles away. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So, but when the solar cycle, which is heading down now, we already maxed, we're at max. And once it starts going down, those signals will disappear and you won't hear them for years. And that makes for great local communication. This is where your radio is going to be so quiet. You'll hear stations that you've never heard, 50, 60 miles away. And believe it or not, if you have a decent base station set up with a nice tall antenna and even a stock radio, 12 watt on sideband, I have made contacts up to 100 miles on a quiet night. So that's what's fun about CB. It all depends on conditions and equipment, and it makes it fun for everybody. Some people get into it and they sort of, okay, I really like this. I want a better radio. I want a better antenna. And then there's other people that get it and say, meh, but there are downfalls to CB radio. For instance, there are some dirty mouth truckers. You can't avoid it. It's in our world. So if you've got kids in the car and you don't want to hear anything foul language or whatever on the radio, don't turn it on, because you're going to find that on trucker channels and stuff like that. Even with the skip and you're hearing some locals talking from far, far away, they can do that too. But here at the Northshore CB Radio Club, we all keep a pretty clean show because we don't want that around. So we try to keep it clean, and so far so good. We haven't had any issues. So you know all about that.
Well, yeah, actually, on the shortwave on the ham side, we've got 7,200 down there, and there's some guys in that frequency range that are the wild, wild west of the amateur radio world. And yeah, one of my favorite times and what really hooked me on keeping CBs around and being involved in radios at all was I was living in Washington State, and I had just started keeping radios in my car right around that time, and or I had been for a little bit, but really getting into it and trying to learn a little bit about it, because up to that point I had just followed the advice that was given to me when I first started, which was get a Cobra 19, get a K40, and whatever the best piece of coax you can buy at the truck stop is that's short enough to connect them, and that's what you want in your car. And that's all I ever put in my car. So anyway, that's a different story. But I was in an area called Woodbrook in Washington State, which is close to Fort Lewis. I was talking to somebody who was up in the Yakima Mountains, and I heard him, and he was talking to somebody in New Mexico. The guy in New Mexico couldn't hear me, but I could hear both of them. And I broke in and I started talking, and the guy up in the mountains, he relayed for me.
That's a 10-5, by the way.
Yeah, he relayed for me, and I sat there with them for probably 3 hours talking,
Nice.
and before I had to go do something else and move my car and go somewhere that I was trying to get to. But that hooked me on radio at that point, and I, when I did get out of it some years later, I didn't realize just how much I missed it until I got back into it. So it's a great hobby to be a part of. So you started Northshore CB Radio Club not all that long ago. What inspired you to get into that?
Well, like I said, CB's been part of my life. But when I set up a base station at the house, and I started out with just a cheap radio and a homemade antenna, and there was 2 or 3 of us, that started talking, and we were actually talking on channel 19, the trucker channel, because back in 2020, the skip was kind of low and there was not a lot of propagation, so the radio was quiet. And after we started talking, he got his dad, his old trucker's CB radio out of the garage, hooked it up in his house, and he started talking. So there was 3 of us talking on 19. And then I already mentioned the story about the guy with the problem with his radio. When we got him fixed up, that guy, you couldn't get him off the radio. He was on there all the time. He went by Guitar Picker, and funny story, he'd be, hey, this is Guitar Picker, and truckers need a free radio check. I'll give you a free radio check. He just wanted someone to talk to, so that was a lot of fun. So we started growing, but, every now and then we'd get a foul-mouthed trucker get on there and yell at us for being on the trucker channel. So we did decide to maybe, move to another channel. So this was in 2020. We were pretty much local in the Dorset, Jefferson, Conneaut area. And then one day I was scanning through the channels, and I heard this weird noise. Sounded like Charlie Brown's parrots. I'm like, that sounds like sideband. And sure enough, I had a sideband radio. I flipped it to the lower sideband, and I could hear these guys talking back and forth out of Erie, Pennsylvania area. So I grabbed the microphone as soon as they unkeyed, and they were able to hear me. And I introduced myself to them, and so did the other guys. And next thing you know, hey, we got a club going on here. So we started. The reason we had to switch to sideband, so this means we all had to upgrade our radios. If you did not, if you had a regular cheap CB and it only had, a volume and a squelch, it wasn't going to cut it. You had to have a CB radio that said SSB. So I already had an SSB radio. The other guys upgraded, and we had to use the sideband channel. Now, the rules for CB are pretty much, spoken thing, nothing in stone or written. But sidebanders use the upper channels.
Fall under Part 95, right?
Yeah, we do fall under Part 95. So there are rules and regulations for CB radio. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to break the rules, even though it happens a lot. And it is what it is. But once we got sideband radios, we were able to communicate into Erie. And then we grew into Wattsburg, Titusville, Tionesta. Canada starts joining in on us. Cortland, Ontario, Canada. And so we had to stick with an upper channel and a sideband channel so we could all communicate together. So that's when I started the club. I figured, we're on the North Shore. We're a CB Radio Club out North Shore CB Radio Club.
Great name.
So the guys in Canada was like, now wait a minute, we're the North Shore. You guys are the South Shore. I'm like, well, here in the States, we consider Lake Erie the North Shore. So it worked for both of us.
Gotcha.
So that's how that worked out. So that's how the club got started. I started the club. It's not like a big personal club. It's to get in the club, all you got to do is get on the air and talk to us, and I'll put you on the map. I got a little map. If you, it's on Google Maps, but you have to go to Facebook. We do have the Facebook North Shore CB Radio Club. If you see this, that's our CB Radio Club. And we'll put a pin on the map. You're part of the club. Once a year, we have a chili cook-off. That's our club. So, we don't have personal meetings. We don't get to know too much personal about each other, except what we talk about on the radio. And sometimes it's nice that way.
Yeah, that can avoid a lot of stuff too.
Yes.
Absolutely. as a person who runs a local radio club here, I can definitely appreciate the standoffishness, but at the same time, it depends on what you want to get out of the organization that you're trying to run too.
Exactly.
We're with our 501c3 now and all that, we're really starting to try and push and do some good in the neighborhood, so to speak, and make that happen. But any form of informal organization among radio operators is great, and I see that happen quite a bit. And there's guys up in Alaska. Actually, one of the reasons why we made our club, we called, a lot of the ham clubs are amateur radio only, and one of the reasons why we called ourselves Amigos Radio Club Ashtabula is because we didn't want to limit ourselves to just ham radio operators. A lot of these amateur radio clubs, you have to be a ham. Well, that leaves out the GMRS guys, that leaves out the CB guys. I said, when we started the club, I said, if we have an FM radio DJ from 107.9 or whatever that wants to come and join our radio club because he's interested in radio and has something he can bring to the table, there's no reason why we shouldn't let him be there. So we kind of stayed open to everybody, and hopefully that's where we're at. But CB, maybe you could help us out. I know Rikus was asking me the other day when we were on the channel what the difference between CB and ham radio is. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that from your perspective.
Well, the CB is one specific band and one specific type of radio. Ham radio entitles all kinds of different radios and different bands, and they have so many different frequencies they can choose from. But there is, believe it or not, I don't know why the FCC ever set it up like this, but the CB band is literally smack dab in the middle of 10-meter CB band and the 12-meter CB band. And then in between those is what we call free band.
Right.
So some CB radios, you can have a frequency, you can go up into free band or down into free band. And these are channels that you'd be surprised there are people in other countries and so forth using. Now, if we want to talk about rules and FCC, you're not supposed to technically talk out of band. You can listen anywhere, any kind of radio, you can listen legally. You can buy a ham radio. If you don't have a license, you can't key it up. But you can listen all you want. Same thing with CB. But it's, you don't want to go push the rules. For instance, like power settings. A CB radio by law or FCC rules is 4 watts AM, 12 watts sideband. And it don't seem like a lot, but believe it or not, with the sideband feature, that really gets your communications out there. Now, don't get me wrong, some of us use export radios. So these are literally ham radios that you can do a little modification or push a few buttons and the CB band opens up. Now, if you're talking on CB band with one of these radios, you're probably doing 50 plus watts, even up to 100 on some of them or more. And technically that's breaking the rules. But then you got guys that just have a plain Jane radio with a 500 watt amplifier, and those are the people that are really loud, and they are technically breaking the rules too. And I'm not going to lie, some of us break the rules, but the FCC, not technically, no. I now here's one thing I do want to mention this. I don't like to cause interference or cause any problems with my radio. My neighbor moved in across the street about this time, and once I got my antenna out of the tree and put an actual tower up and got that antenna up 50 feet, my neighbor started calling and says, every night around 8 o'clock, my TV goes out and it says no signal, and it gets all pixelized. And then it comes back, and then it goes away. And I'm like, uh-oh. I knew what the problem was. So at the time, I was only running a Bearcat 980 12-watt radio, but I did have a 100-watt amplifier. So I shut the amplifier off. All right, we're not going to use the amplifier. Well, she continued to complain, even running a legal stock radio. At that point, I could say, well, it's your problem now. But no, I want to be a nice guy. I want to resolve the situation. I asked her if I go over and look at her stuff, and she had one of those old, huge beam antennas from Radio Shack that was probably 50 years old, and that black cable, the coax that went to it, it was literally busting in pieces. So my communications were wiping out her TV.
Her coax was acting as an antenna.
The coax was acting as an antenna, and it was picking up everything. So I literally bought her a new HD TV antenna. Comes with the wire, the little rotator, and I paid my buddy to come out and get this thing up on top of her original antenna. And I gave my buddy a walkie-talkie, and I went to my radio, and I said, you listen, and I'm going to key up on my radio and see if I'm interfering. And there was no problem. The interference is gone. I turned the amplifier on. No problem. Interference gone. Okay, we resolved the situation. So that's what I like to do, is keep the situation resolved. And now the neighbor has no complaints. I have no complaints. Everybody's happy. That's the way things should go. You know what I mean? I could have went the other route and said, that's your problem now. But, yeah, you don't want to be that way.
Well, and we try and do that as amateur radio operators too. That's kind of in the amateur radio operators
Unspoken
code.
rules.
Well, it's not even unspoken. I mean, it's our responsibility not to cause interference. But if interference is being caused, then we need to be responsible enough to help fix the problem.
Exactly.
Just like that.
Not only that, my neighbor had a John Deere tractor and a chain. So
Yeah.
she could very easily take care of my interference.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too hard to do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So specifically though, I mean, there's guys out there you mentioned that kind of break the rules, and I know some guys, and I'm not going to mention names, and I'm like, yeah, if you want to talk to this guy, he's on the radio, he's on CB. If you got a CB, just pick it up. And he's like, and call this guy, and he'll talk to you. And then a couple of days later, that guy came back and was like, I don't know that guy heard me, or I didn't hear him. I'm like, well, then he didn't want to talk to you, because I know his equipment, and I know what he's got sitting in his basement. And if he wanted you to hear him anywhere in Ohio, you probably could. And, and I know it's not Skip when you hear guys out there, and I know I don't know how he gets away with it, but he is one of my favorite people to listen to on CB is Megamouth Mall out there. He does a great job talking on there, but you can hear him here he's out in California. You can hear him here in Ohio like he's just sitting right next to you.
Yeah, Motormouth Mo out there. He's West Coast, and he has a huge beam array antenna, and he can point that beam and just aim his signal right through your radio. And he sounds like he's sitting right next to you. It's like, wow. And he's probably running on, I'm just going to speculate he's running illegal power, but it could be all antenna. So who's to know? But there are a lot of them that do. Here in our club, most of us have stock radios, and we only turn the power on when we hear that guy from Canada come in, or we hear the guy from Youngstown come in. So our club has expanded through the years. Our farthest west member is Champion, Ohio. Our farthest east member would be Westfield, New York. Of course, we talked to Angola a couple times. And we go far south as Youngstown, up around Titusville, Tionesta area, and all the way north up into Cortland, Ontario, Canada. So that's the range we got. And I pretty much can talk to everybody within about a 100-mile range. And I can do that without running power, and I can do it legally. And it just makes it easier sometimes when, hey, I have trouble hearing you, and you can flip a switch, and hey, that's better. And then when you're done, you can shut it back off. So, yes, some of us CB guys do break the rules, but as long as you're not, like I'm doing with my neighbor at that time, if I was wiping out all my neighbors, that would be a problem. If I was near a hospital or a school or emergency fire station, and my radio is interfering with their equipment, yes, that's a major. The FCC will get involved. They will take your equipment. They will fine you and or jail you. It's that simple.
Yeah.
So when you're playing, if you want to bend the rules, you can bend the rules a little, but you don't want to, pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. Okay, that's all I got to say. So, as long as you're moderate. So if you're interested in CB, let's say we guys been talking enough about it. So if I want to get into CB, what do I do? Well, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can literally get started for around $100.
Yeah.
And that's either online, eBay, Amazon, or at your local truck stop. You can usually buy a Uniden Pro 501 for like $49, $59. They got the Wilson Little Well magnet mount antenna. That's like $40. So there's $100. Now you want to tune your antenna to your radio. So that's the one part that throws people off. But literally, if you slap the magnet mount on and hook it up, it will work. But as you learn, you want to tune your antenna to your radio so you don't damage your equipment and you sound as best as possible. So literally for $100, you can get on the air and talk 5, 6, 7, 8 miles or more, depending on conditions. And it's that easy. And like I said earlier, if you hear people that sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, that they're on sideband, they're probably on the upper channel, 35 and up. You can talk to those people if you upgrade your radio. So you see where I'm going there? CB stands for constantly buying.
Constantly buying. Oh, it's like bust out another 1,000 for boat.
Yeah, it's still cheaper than the boat hobby I got.
Oh, right, because you've been sitting there.
Yeah, I don't know much about CBs. I never had like the opportunity to learn, but I did grow up in the 80s, and I'm very much influenced by movies. And you said there was a big boom in the radio thing, and I seen that in the movies with movies coming out like Breaker. I'm a big Chuck Norris fan, so that I immediately went to that when I was a kid.
Smokey and the Bandit,
Smoking
Convoy.
Even Dukes of Hazzard had a lot of CB talk.
Yes.
Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone. Mostly any movies with truckers.
Twister. And the new Twister movie where they have no coax hooked to their radios. But they can magically talk into the air.
I haven't watched the new one yet, but I'm very familiar with the old one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Over the Top.
It's in the movies and in TV, but
mostly in the 70s, late 70s and early 80s is when it blew up too in the movies.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I see that now when you reference that, and I get that. So that's
what
my
made it
knowledge of
popular,
CBs.
exactly. And after like Smoking the Bandit and Convoy and stuff, CB exploded.
Right.
And you've seen antennas on everybody's car. I mean, back then everyone had a CB radio. And now today, suppose you don't want a big ugly antenna on your vehicle and you have a modern car, can you still have a CB? I don't want to drill holes in my dash. Yes, you can buy, even at a truck stop, a Uniden 40-channel walkie-talkie. And you get an antenna adapter. You put a little magnet mount on your roof, and you hook up the adapter, and you got a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug. There's your CB laying on the seat. There's no holes in your dash. And you got an antenna on the roof where people can hear you and you can hear. And they make modern antennas that look like regular radio antennas. So that's nice. President New Virginia, it's a 19-inch antenna. It angles back. You can stand it up whatever way you want, but it's got an oval base on it, and it looks like a regular antenna, so nobody would even know you had a CB in your car. So there's that route, too.
Yeah, without plugging any particular line of radio, the Presidents are pretty cool, and if you're interested in CB radios, they make a good, I think they're probably one of the better ones out there now, and some of them will dabble into the ham bands a little bit too, so you can kind of get a little taste of that. I really love 10 meters in the amateur bands because it's just like CB because it's 11 meters.
Yeah,
so
it's identical almost. So,
yeah, it pretty much does the same
you're
stuff.
At 27 megahertz, and up there you're at 30. So we're not too far away from each other.
Yeah, if band conditions are the way they are on one, you can pretty much guarantee they are on the other one. So, yeah, that's if people are looking for a little bit more money, good quality radios that kind of start to blend into both, they can do that too. But CB's a great hobby, man. CB saved me once. I was stuck on a mountaintop, and I left the keys in the car. We pulled over into the rest stop because the clouds had come through. And when I say rest stop, I mean like just big enough for you to pull your car in on some of these mountain roads up there. And when I left the actual radio on, the AM/FM radio on, so we could listen to some music, and I figured, we'll crash here. I left the running lights on the car. When I woke up in the morning, I forgot that the car I was in had amplifier and power boosted speakers in the back, so it drained the battery a whole lot. All the lights and everything came on, but I couldn't get the motor to turn over. The starter would just click. I'm like, man, but I was on top of Mount Rainier, I was halfway down. I'm like, I know there's a base station up there. And back then, Channel 9 was still a thing, which was considered the emergency channel, which was the holdover from the license days. So I flipped over to Channel 9 and I tried to radio the base station up top. I did not get to the base station, but my signal bounced off the mountain across the valley, and a guy 30 miles away from me heard me, and he called on his phone the base station at the top of the hill and told him that there were people stuck down there. And the ranger came down and gave us a jump and sent us on our way. So I that could have been a bad situation all the way around if it wasn't for CB radio. So CB radio, 2-meter radio, and you mentioned it in TVs. I've been watching Walking Dead a lot. I actually bought all of them, and I've been watching the whole series all the way through. And they use a lot of CB and amateur radio equipment in that show.
Yeah, they definitely do. And that instant that you had back in the day before cell phones were popular or even available to the general public, CB radio was your source of communication. That was it. Mm-hmm. And that's why it was so popular. Now, today, we don't think about it. We take a lot of stuff for granted. But, I mean, let's assume we have a major disaster, a major earthquake, and the power goes out and there's no cell phone service for days. I'm talking. I'm still talking. And even if my base station don't work, which it will because it does have battery backup power, go out in the mobile and I can talk out there to all my other mobile buddies. So we can get a line of communication going. So that's another thing to consider. You get you a CB and a magnet mount antenna, and you got it in case of an emergency. And if your family members don't live far away, you can all have them and talk to each other.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad idea for emergency communications.
I saw some people talking about that on Facebook out of Jefferson. They were asking about what are good ways to do communications. I'm like, man, the main repeater for the area is ham radio repeater for the area is right in Jefferson, and man, an 8-year-old kid could get past the test, so that wouldn't be that hard to do. And and I actually saw you jumped in there with the CB stuff too, and any of those would have been good options. GMRS is a little weak, but it could still be done.
Yeah, there are other radios out there. Like you can go to Walmart and buy those little handheld kids walkie-talkies, but the range on those is not very good. I mean, you can literally run out of range and yell to that person and they'll hear you. So, but GMRS, that's a step above that, way above. You can actually legally run 50 watts on GMRS. So if you have a good GMRS radio, there's no tests for a GMRS license, and it covers your whole family. So you can just pay the fee and get the license for the whole family if you want to go that route. CB, there's no license, no fee, none of that. Just it's got its ups and downs, so just like anything else. So, and let's not forget about ham radio. If you really want to talk the distance, ham radio will do that, and different bands will, perform better than others. Now, the FCC doesn't require Morse code to get your license, so if you're interested in getting your ham ticket, it's not that hard to pass the test. You can study free online and go meet up with your local guys, and they'll hook you up. They'll get you your license. Not a problem.
Yeah, and just for full disclosure, are you still currently a licensed technician?
Yes, I am still currently licensed. I don't use my ham ticket. It's just I'm more of a CB guy. I've always had the ham license. Well, not always, but I've had it for many years. But I just don't use it as much as I used to, and I got it if I need it.
Yeah. So and I'm technician too. I mean, but I do everything I could possibly do as a technician. I mean, honestly, I run a radio net. I run a radio club. I help out with public service events, all that. So just because they're like, oh, you're only a technician. No, you're only as you set yourself to be. Absolutely, for that. And so the other question I had for you, which hopefully this will add to it, is we do a lot of digital stuff. Have you guys done all that? Are you allowed to do that through 95?
No, you're not allowed to do that for CB band, so there's not going to be any digital. All you get is your FM and sideband modes, and of course FM mode, which nobody's utilizing. But Yeah, there's none of that going on. It's basically the same old CB radio that they've used since the 1950s. You know what I mean?
So it's all voice phone.
It's all voice phone, yeah, basically. So you're not allowed to have a repeater on CB band. So if you a ham station can have a repeater set up in a tower somewhere.
GRMS.
Yeah, and
They can't.
GMRS can have a repeater also. If you can hit that repeater with your radio, it'll repeat it out to its range. But you can't legally do that on CB radio, so that's why CB guys, when they get into it, their antennas get bigger, their radios get bigger. It is how it is. The vehicle,
11-meter canisters would be like.
yeah, the canisters would be huge. But I did I drove in today with my Honda with a 9-foot whip antenna on it because it performs the best. You know what I mean? So, sometimes when you get into it, you want the best, and if it works, like you were talking about President Electronics, they make great stuff. I have a President Electronics radio in my truck. I got a couple at home, and they're great radios.
Not to knock any of the other ones. Unidents make pretty good ones.
Yep.
Cobras
are
too,
decent.
depending on what year you buy.
Right. You can even get literally a used CB on Facebook Marketplace for like $10.
Yeah.
You see it all the time, but you're taking a chance because you don't know if it works or not. So, and if you don't know nothing about it, then yeah, you're out your $10, right? That's how it works.
Yeah, just someone on the outside of the radio hobby. I realize there's a misconception now. I grew up watching the movies, and I always thought CB was related to the truckers. And then after you talking, it sounds like almost anybody can just pick up a CB and be a part of the hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Our local club, we're on every morning when I get up and I hit the road at 6:30. My radio's on, and I'll talk to anywhere from 1 to 5 people. And now during the middle of the day when I'm at the shop, I have a CB radio at the shop, and I can listen. If I hear anybody come in, if I have a moment, unless I'm not working or whatever, I can, hey, yeah, I hear you out there. I got to get back to work, whatever. But, that's, the CB radio is anytime you can get into it. In the evening time, when our club gets together, there's, anywhere from 2 to 20 of us. And we just sit and talk about stuff like you would hear on a ham band. You know what I mean? It's talk about our radios, talk about the weather, talk about stuff. Some personal things, it all depends on how much you know the person. So.
Yeah, you guys aren't as cluttered up with, and not that I have anything against it because I participate in them too, but you're not as cluttered up with contesting as the ham bands are.
Right. There are some contests you can find out there in DX land. For instance, on Saturdays, there's this guy out in Texas. He hosts a CB radio rodeo, and I'll listen to him at work because he'll have you are contact number 146 443. I hear you, and then boom, boom, boom. He gets the next one. He'll get up to 200 people in an afternoon. Just doing that. But he's doing that through the propagation and skip, so you don't always have that. But in the meantime, we still have some skip out there, so we're able to make some contacts. And like I said, at home, when we're all talking locally, sometimes you'll hear somebody from down south just come in and, hey, I've been listening to you guys talking, and my name's John, and I'm out here in, South Georgia. Keep up the good work. And then all of us will try to talk to that guy. And
That's awesome.
And then he'll fade out and get quieter and quieter, and then he's gone. But on a rare occasion, that person will come back 2-3 days later.
Yeah.
It does happen. It does happen. So a lot of us have like maps on our walls, and we'll put little pins and markers and numbers. I use the online map I made and created for the club. It's so much easier to put a pin and a marker on a map like that. But yeah, we have a lot of range, a lot of good people. CB is it's a cheap hobby if you want to get into it and, wet your toes. Yeah. But otherwise, you're out $100 if you don't like it. It's that simple. You know what I mean? But like I said, it's license free. It's fun. It can be fun. There are local clubs in different parts of the country. It just all depends on where you live.
Yeah, and where how far you can get out depends too on terrain. Like out here, height is might, and well, if you get up to the top of the hill, you're doing good.
Yeah. We have a guy that lives here in Conneaut. He'll drive up to the top of the hill by the water tower, And he likes to talk on his base station, but the problem is a lot of modern electronic equipment that we see all around here, this stuff causes interference.
It sure does.
And LED lights cause interference. So there's another thing. If your car has LED lights, don't even buy a CB. Don't even waste your time. Because as soon as you turn the lights on, it's just going to be all static.
What about the electric cars, too? You guys have
Electric cars will literally, everyone so far that I've driven into the shop, because I'll have my CB or scanner on, depending on what bay I'm in. I'll pull up to the bay where the CB is, and it's just a full needle of static. Or the scanner will go off on some random channel, and it's all static. It's from the RF coming from the vehicle. And not just electric cars, but a lot of other, modern vehicles. You'll have that problem putting a CB in your car, you may notice. You'll put a mobile CB in your car, and why is my needle full blast of noise and I can't hear anybody? That's because your vehicle, it's not going to allow you to do it. So, those things are to be considered.
Yeah, my father-in-law has a newer Dodge with LED headlights and all the sound canceling. The actually has a microphone in it to hear the noise for the road, and then produces a noise out of the speaker to suppress the noise from the road that the microphone is hearing. It's kind of weird, but I guess it works. But you could tell when he starts his truck, and I'm on the HF side, not just on the FM side, but on the HF side doing stuff. As soon as he starts that truck, I might as well wait until he pulls out of the driveway, because I can't hear nothing. It goes through the roof, and I'm shielded inside of a metal box, and my antenna's on a 40-foot tower on the opposite side of the building. So good 75, 80 feet away from where that truck starts up at. And so I think all the modern cars have that issue.
Yeah, modern appliances, modern houses too. So, for instance, when I set up my base station, I had a lot of noise on my radio, and I tried moving my antenna in different spots, and I got tired of chasing it, because the bigger my antenna got, the harder it was to move. So I grabbed a walkie-talkie, a cheap walkie-talkie, and I turned the volume full blast, and I could just hear the static around the house, and I just started walking around my property. And then there was this one spot about 60 feet away. It just went completely, I had to go like that to see if it was still working. I thought the batteries died, but no, okay, I marked that spot in the ground. That's where my antenna goes. And I look back and there's going to be 150 feet of coax. So CB constantly buying. So that's where the tower went, and I can hear everything. So that's, the handheld really saved me in that instance, because I was getting that close to giving up because of the noise. Because when I first set it up, my needle would read maybe 5. You think that ain't bad? It is bad.
That's horrible.
And, I'm yelling out there and nobody's coming back. And then 10 minutes later, hey, is that Mullet man still out there? I heard you 30 miles back. I'm like, okay. So, yeah, noise can be an issue. So, there are ups and downs of any hobby you get into. So I'm just going to steer you clear of any problems if you, take a few procedures and a few steps first if you want to get into the hobby. Don't go all out and start buying expensive stuff and then find out you can't even use it.
Right.
Because I know people who have small properties and they only have, so many square footage. And if it's noise with the walkie-talkie on all your property, there's nothing you can do about it. If you live next to a business, there's nothing you can do about it.
You can go up.
You can go up, but that all depends on how much real estate you have to go up.
Yeah, and whether the homeowners association will let you.
Exactly, or the landlord or whoever. Yeah. But that's like the truck stop right here from us. Very noisy. When I pull up to that intersection, my CB is full blast noise. I mean, and if somebody tried to talk, I wouldn't hear nothing.
Yeah.
So you run into that.
I have the same problem with some of the gas stations I go to, even with the 2-meter FM, because you pull up in there and just under the pumps, that metal roof that you sit under, that's enough sometimes. Or you pull up too close to the building, and now all those pumps, they're all they're all Bluetooth, or not Bluetooth, but whatever little 900 megahertz, whatever radio frequency they're using. That interferes with radio comms. So absolutely, I feel you on that. And then it's got to kill the truckers that are out there that are still using it.
Yeah, I mean, even a lot of the truck stops, like the one close by here, you could be in a semi, 4 semis away from another semi and not be able to hear them because of all the noise that comes from the, modern LED lights and modern equipment. And it kind of really ruins the hobby in that way, because back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't have that problem.
No.
There was no noise.
Yeah.
It was a much quieter place.
And when the sun went down, you could get out
way
far.
out there, just like turning on your AM radio and picking up Detroit clear as bell, So same thing with the CB
Now
and the
you
ham.
need a Galaxy and 500 watts.
Yeah, there you go. Or if you get really angry at the interference, you just get you a big illegal amplifier and pull right up to the gas pump and key up and watch the screen go blank.
Oh yeah, I don't recommend that.
No, we don't want to do that. Like I said, we don't want to cause interference. So that's important. Got to keep your neighbors happy and keep everybody happy, and enjoy what you do, and enjoy it respectively.
It's good advice.
Yeah, always good advice. Always good advice. So on the preparedness side of that stuff, I know you being also a ham, the Aries stuff and all the emergency services stuff the ham radio operators try and do. In that situation, would you guys work closely with amateur radio guys that are working with the recovery operations, or are you more looking at like the closer to the ground, like stay sheltered in place civilian communication back and forth stuff? I just know that like when those hurricanes ripped through last year, I did a bunch of relays down into North Carolina and Tennessee for folks to do welfare checks, and I did get responses back, because there were, like I always say, there was guys down there, ham radio operators that were, ham radio operators were the first ones on scene, and they were on donkeys, climbing up mountains on donkeys with mobile rigs to get information to and from people. And some of what we do gets lost, the news hype of, oh, look, Starlink came down 2 weeks, 3 weeks later. Great. Good for them. They did what they did. But it was the ham operators. It was the CB guys. All the local guys on the ground that started doing that. I know there's a little bit of a rivalry there between them, and one of the things I like to do is try and bridge the gap, which is why I'm having you on the show too. And it's a great hobby too. It's both that. But when there's those things, push comes to shove. Are you guys in there with the rest of them?
Actually, yeah. When it comes to like an emergency situation, like what happened, a lot of you probably seen that on like YouTube and stuff. Those ham guys, they were on top of it. Now us, like the CB guys, we're not going to interfere with any ham, radio communications. We're going to let them do their thing. But what we can do is, all of us have mobiles and most of us have base stations. So in our certain areas, we'll know how far or bad the disaster can be, or where it is, just by jumping in our vehicles and relaying the information locally. But the only people who know that would be us locals on the CB side. If I do turn on my ham radio, I'll listen, but if there is an active group that is already working and getting stuff done, I can offer assistance, where I can, but if they don't need it, I'm not going to interfere with it. So, that's a good thing too, to have radio communications in a backup in an emergency. You just don't know. And sometimes those Walmart walkie-talkies aren't going to cut it, Yeah. And like I said, the CB, no license, it's not hard to get involved. And if it works out, it works out. And it's a good backup plan. Even if you don't use it, you got it, just in case.
Yeah, I watched a couple of there's a couple of retired special forces guys that I watch, and they talk about what they're doing when they're preparing to go out and do stuff, and a lot of them all say, well, first we make a plan, and then we decide on our comms, and then we decide on our backup comms, and then we decide on our backup comms, and then we decide on who's going to be in charge of first aid, who's going to be in charge of leading the mission. Like like they develop a general overall plan first, and then they develop 3-4 layers of comms before they even talk about, oh, this person's going to be taking this role, this person's going to be taking that role. So it's really important. CB is just another layer in that.
Yeah, and that layer can be combined. For instance, I do have my ticket. So if there are disaster in the area and it's really bad in my area and phone cell service is down, there's no one to get a hold of, and one of my buddies on the CB gets a hold of me saying he's in danger or whatever, and I can't get to him, or if I do get to him, I find out it's something that, is out of my hands, and I can't get, 911 or emergency services. I can get home, use my ham ticket, and grab my ham radio and get in there and relay the information, and that call will go somewhere. So there's what you talk about, layers of communication. It's very important to have layers of communication because you never know what's going to happen down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's an enjoyable hobby, but it can be an important one too. So, it's when you think of CB radio, we're not talking Smokey and the Bandit days anymore. Those days are pretty much long gone. But
They were fun though.
they were fun. Yes, those days were fun when it comes to pretty much everything. So. Yeah, growing up in the 70s and 80s, we always thought that, man, the future is going to be awesome. Now, what a disappointment. I'm highly disappointed, but hey, it is what it is.
It seems like we all the lessons that we were being taught from the movies back then were following all the bad things and leaving all the cool stuff behind.
Yeah, I guess they got to warn us. I don't know. But yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way the ball bounces. So
I think the 70s and the 80s need a redo.
yeah, they do need a redo. They're great times, man. Those
go
much
back.
simpler times.
Yep.
Bring back the good music.
Yeah, bring
Yeah.
back the good in the hair.
Hair.
Bring back the
And
mullet.
the hair. Mr. Mullet man himself. Award-winning mullet.
Yes. So I do have a YouTube channel, by the way, Johnny Mullet. You can check it out. You type my name in, it'll pop up. You'll see the hair. You can also find me on Facebook under the same name. So Northshore CB Radio Club. You see that logo on Facebook. When you search that, you'll find our club, and somebody will approve you if you want to join and learn some more. So there's always that. You're getting squishy over there?
No, I was trying to find my phone.
I thought you had it above your
Here it
head.
is. I got it
There you
right here.
go. There you go.
I think we're getting close to.
Yeah?
Well,
Did you learn anything tonight?
I learned a lot.
Good. I'm glad somebody learned. It's nice when people are able to learn.
Like I said, I all my CB knowledge comes from movies.
Hey, all right. Now you got some firsthand information, so that ought to be able to
Exactly.
help you.
Well, hey, before we wrap it up, and thanks for putting that out there, everybody go check him out on Facebook, Northshore CB Radio Club.
Like and subscribe them.
Like and subscribe him on YouTube, also Johnny Mullet, and I do have a couple announcements. One of the things we do in our radio club here is we work with other organizations. This coming up here, 12/13/25 is Share Christmas, and that's going to be at the Dorset Community Center, and our radio club, Amigos Radio Club Ashtabula, we're going to be going down there and we're going to be volunteering to serve dinner for this is the Jefferson Conservation Club, which is where we host our meetings at. They do a yearly banquet down there, and it's their big fundraiser for the year. They do a food drive. It's you come bring a thing of food and have a Thanksgiving dinner. There's a little auction. It's not a little auction, but it's like it's an auction. It takes place. People bring stuff for donating. Everything goes to helping out 1 or 2 families for the Christmas time. So all the food goes to the food centers, and the money that they raise from the auction, I believe, goes to sponsor one family so that they have a great Christmas.
Hey,
And,
definitely help spread the word there.
Yeah, definitely do that, please. And that dinner starts at 5 p.m. And that's going to be at the Dorset Community Center down there, down State Route 193. It's going to be 2681 State Route 193 in Dorset. That's going to start again at 5 p.m. Please bring a bunch of canned food. That's the donation to get in the door. And it's ham and turkey and stuffing and, a whole big Christmas dinner and a little bit of entertainment. So please, people, feel free to show up to that. That's a doors open to the public.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, I'm glad you guys had me on tonight. I had a good time sharing some information and seeing you again and meeting you all. And I hope people out there maybe learned something tonight, and if not, I hope you had fun watching anyway.
And I would like to also announce that at Captain's Comics, I'm doing a toy drive for Toys for Tots, sponsored by the Marine Corps Reserve. December 12th is going to be the last day that we're going to. So if you want to donate or go to Ollie's or some store and buy some cheap toys, as long as they're packaged, donate them to, drop them off at a box at our store or other stores.
Good cause.
It's a very good cause. And also, I would like to say thank you for our stand-in line producer, Dr. Ben. Our
Thanks, Dr. Ben.
Andrew got bit by a radioactive virus, and he couldn't make it today. So it could have been all that radioactive equipment he's been hanging around.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's something with the bees and the radioactive watches. I guess has got him under the weather. But
If he comes back
appreciate
and starts,
Dr. Ben coming in and standing in for him, being our monkey pusher tonight. Appreciate that, man.
if Andrew comes back slurring his Z, he's like, I'd be worried.
I wish him well. I know he's really sick. I talked to his girlfriend on the way down here, and he's not doing so hot. He's been sick for a couple of days. It took him 2 days to respond to me.
Oh,
So,
wow.
I think he's missing the away missions again. His poor kid. He's like, I keep missing the away missions, and he finally had some time off to come with the away missions that were going on this weekend, and he's not going to be coming back until next week, I'm sure. So, all right. Well, that's pretty much. Let's wrap it up here. Johnny Mullet, thank you
Yeah, nice meeting you
again.
again.
Thanks.
Everybody,
Nice to meet
thanks
you
for
tonight.
joining us tonight. Hobby on.
I'll be on.
I'll be out.
Fade to black.